Robert Fulghum tells a most wonderful story about a kindergarten class which decided to do the story of Cinderella. As we know, there are lots and lots of roles in Cinderella, but still casting was a real chore. All the girls, of course, wanted to be Cinderella. Finally, however, the children chose their roles, except for one tiny tot named Norman. And so the teacher asked, "Norman, what are you going to be?" "Well," said Norman, "I think I'll be the pig." "But there is no pig in the story of Cinderella," said the teacher. To which Norman simply responded, "Well, now there is." The teacher could tell that it was going to be senseless to argue with Norman, so she left it to him to decide just what role a pig might play in the Cinderella story. As it turned out, the pig went everywhere that Cinderella went. The pig did everything that Cinderella did. Norman said not a word, but his face reflected the action of the drama. When things were serious, Norman was serious. And when things looked worrisome, Norman looked very, very worried. When things were in doubt, he looked anxious. And at the end of the performance, when the princess was carried off to live happily ever after, Norman stood on his hind legs and barked. The teacher pleaded with Norman, "Norman, even if there is a pig in the story, pigs don't bark." And Norman merely looked at his teacher and answered, "Well, this one does." You can imagine what happened on the night of the performance. Fearless Norman, the barking pig, stole the show, received a standing ovation, and was in the end the Cinderella of this story. You know, we laugh, but deep down within us, there just might be a message in this story for all of us. And just perhaps we might see a bit of that lesson in our gospel message this morning. It is 3:00 in the morning. Late time, good time, dancing time when we're young, sleep time when you're my age. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. It's the time psychologists associate most with insomnia and worry. If your teenager is not home by 3 a.m., it's floor placing time. If the telephone rings at 3 a.m., it's palm sweating time. If folks are in the streets at 3 a.m., it's up to no good time. And we all know that 3 a.m. is absolutely no time to be awakened with a rumbling stomach, with dripping faucets, or even with those furry little creatures crawling up the wall. And by the way, that's why I don't go camping. Matthew this morning makes it very clear that it is 3:00 in the morning for Jesus' disciples. There's rain, there's torrents of rain. It's a dark and dismal night, no stars, no moon, disciples retching over the side of a boat. Fear is everywhere present. What a picture. Why, we might ask, why do the disciples have so little sense as to be on the Galilean lake in this kind of weather? Where our morning lesson gives us a very distinct answer for this. Why? The answer is quite simple. The disciples were on the lake because Jesus told the disciples to get into the boat and go ahead to the other side. Don't miss the point. The disciples are in the boat because Jesus sent them out into the waters. Jesus sent them out into the waters of life. Did Jesus cause this raging storm, the battering waves, the wind blowing against the disciples? Oh no. But Jesus used this storm. Jesus used this raging storm to give heart to the terrified disciples, to make them fearless in the midst of the troubled seas of life, and to let the disciples know that his outstretched hands would be there to catch them, to strengthen them, to lift them up and hold them in the midst of all of life's waters. This morning we hear Jesus saying to the disciples, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." For some of us gathered here this morning, it is 3 o'clock and the clock is ticking. The turbulent waves of life are crashing all around us. We're feeling bruised and defeated and downhearted. Perhaps we're grieving or carrying a very heavy burden. Every hour of our clock, 24 hours a day, says it's 3 a.m. For others among us, it's 3 o'clock in the morning ethically. We've made poor choices. Temptation has come upon us in a not so nocturnal way. Our boats are rolling and tumbling on turbulent seas, and cold winds are blowing all around us. Doubt has become our very enemy, and fear our greatest adversary. Praying, "Come by here, Lord. Lift me up, Lord. Let me stand, Lord," is not for us. In our minds and in our hearts, in our souls and in our very spirits, God coming by here is for someone else. But still, others among us feel like it's 3 o'clock in the morning spiritually. We want to see ourselves as Christians, but we know we haven't taken our relationship with God very seriously. We pray only when we need something from God. We attend church not to worship, but to see our friends. Meaningful worship is for someone else. We give God not the first fruits of our earnings, but only a small portion of our leftovers. And you know, we're never quite satisfied with how things are going. We're never quite satisfied with what others are doing. And yet, we stand back and choose to do very little or nothing ourselves. Our faith has been watered down, our witness compromised, and our very souls painfully torn asunder. We feel battered by the waves of life. It is 3 o'clock in the morning, and our boats are rolling on the seas. We're far, far from the shore. But where is our courage? Where do we find ourselves being like Norman, the talking pig? My friends, there are no guarantees that being faithful to Christ's call will keep us from facing troubled waters or being filled with fear. But this I know, whether it is noontide or whether it is 3 a.m., you and I can be assured that Jesus loves us. And no matter our problems, no matter how deep or how turbulent our lives, we can have the assurance that our Lord is never going to abandon us. That when we need Jesus the most, our sovereign Lord is going to extend his arms to us. It's going to lift us up, strengthen us, and forever hold us tightly in the palm of God's hands. Take heart. It is I. Do not ever be afraid, said Jesus. And so this morning, I invite each and every one of us to live life with expectancy, to walk with strength, to dismiss life's storms, and to hold tightly to God's hand of amazing grace. To be sure, without a doubt, God is ever near to us. And now is the time, not tomorrow, not yesterday, but this morning, right now, is the time for us to be uniquely the people that God created us to be. To commit ourselves to being trusting and courageous people who just might choose to step out of our comfort zones, to trust in God, and to be called the barking pigs of God's world. Think about it. To be courageous enough to be like little Norman, to be unafraid of life and its consequences, to know that God is ever with us. Yes, now is the time, as did Jesus' disciples, to step out of the boat and into the water. And this morning can be the first day of your life, the day to accept that outstretched hand of Jesus and to declare to God's world, peace on the earth, peace on tree and flower, peace on beast and bird, peace on sea and river, peace on field and mountain, peace on every small abode, peace on mother and child, peace on guest and stranger, peace above, peace below, peace beyond, peace in our hearts, peace for the night, peace for you and peace for me, peace for all of God's children, peace in the midst of troubled waters, God's peace without end, God's peace now and forever. Come by here, O Lord. In this moment, we pray, come by here. Amen.